I have kept the record of what happened on the observation deck of the carrier Vorth's measure for 7 months now. I'm attendant prime Sareth done, and it is my duty, the oldest duty in the Vathrin Concordat, to witness and report what my queen does and says, record what she chooses when she chooses, in the precise words she uses, so that the Concordat archives hold the truth of it for as long as the covenant stands. I have written many entries. Most are procedural, schedule changes, diplomatic correspondence. The hours she spends at the long glass wall of the observation deck, watching the transit lanes drift past in silence. This entry is different. I will write it plainly because she would want it plain. The human was assigned to the carrier 8 months ago. Maintenance technician, 3rd grade. That is the rank the ship's registry carries. His name is Dale Rourke. He is past 40, I think, though I have never confirmed his age. His hair is dark with gray coming in along the temples, and his hands are the hands of a man who has worked with tools since before he was grown. He is not large. He moves through corridors with the particular steadiness of someone who has memorized every Neuthermer ship makes and knows which ones matter. I noticed him early because my work requires me to notice people. I do not think he noticed me at all. He was not impolite, he was simply occupied. The Queen began her vigil on the observation deck in the 2nd week of our transit. I knew why, though I kept the reason in my own records and nowhere else. The Vorth's measure carries her toward a formal conclave, where 3 senior houses of the Concordat will vote on whether the old sovereignty covenant still binds her. She is traveling, officially, as Assessor Thorne. No title. No guard livery. The ship's manifest does not know a queen is aboard. She wanted it that way. She sits at the far end of the observation deck, a curved seat nearest the glass, and she watches the lanes. I sit 12 paces back, near the secondary console, and I watch her. That is my post. On the 11th morning of transit, the maintenance technician came to check the relay calibrations on the deck's environmental panel. He did not speak to her. He ran his check, perhaps 8 minutes of quiet work, and left. She had been reading a transit summary. She did not look up. On the 14th morning he came again. Same check, same 8 minutes. He paused once, I noticed, just for a moment, and looked at where she sat in the long quiet of the glass wall. Then he went back to his work and left. On the 17th morning he came, and he did not go directly to the environmental panel. He went first to the crew commissary hatch 2 corridors down, and then he came to the observation deck carrying 2 sealed thermal units, the small kind the human crew uses for their morning rounds. He set one without a word on the ledge beside her seat, and then he went to the environmental panel and did his check and left. She picked it up. She turned it in her hands. She opened it and drank from it, slowly, still watching the transit lanes. She did not look toward the door he had left through. I wrote it down. He came every 3rd morning after that, always the same route, commissary, then deck, then the ledge, then the panel, then gone. He never interrupted her. He never looked at her the way men look at someone they are performing for. He simply noticed that she was there and seemed cold, or so I concluded. And the thermal cup was his answer to that observation. Was practical and quiet, the way he was practical and quiet, and I do not think he gave it more weight than that. I do not know, even now, whether he knew he was doing something that would matter. I am not sure it changes anything. By the 5th month I had filled half a ledger with small entries about the observation deck. The Queen, who does not miss things, asked me once, not looking up from her own reading, whether I was documenting the maintenance rounds. I told her I was documenting everything relevant to the voyage, as my duty requires. She made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. Then she said quietly that the crew's coffee was not as poor as she had expected. I noted that too. The covenant I mentioned, the one her houses will vote on, is very old. It predates the current charter by 4 generations. At its center is a clause the senior scholars still argue over, that a Vathrin sovereign may declare a consort bond recognition only in public, only in the presence of not fewer than 3 witnesses bearing concordat standing, and only once. If the declaration is not answered, if the one addressed does not understand or does not hold, the covenant is void and the bond cannot be offered. Again, it is the oldest law the Concordat has. I have always thought was the loneliest. She knew it when she stopped sleeping on the 4th month of transit. I know she stopped sleeping because I am her attendant. and I read the pattern for hours. I do not think she was afraid. I think she was deciding. On the morning of the 213th day of transit, a seventh morning, not a third, which meant the maintenance round was not scheduled, Dale Rourke came to the observation deck anyway. He had not come on an unscheduled morning before. He stood in the doorway for a moment, as though checking he had the right deck. Then he crossed to the commissary hatch in the far corridor, and he came back with the thermal unit, and he set it on the ledge. He was turning to go to the environmental panel out of habit, I think, when the door at the far end of the deck opened, and Delegate Farron of House Callist walked in. Farron is a senior Concordat delegate. He knows the Queen. He has served in her presence for 20 years. He stopped 3 steps through the door, and I watched the recognition land on his face. The precise, arrested expression of a man who sees his Queen where he did not expect to find her, in a plain coat without insignia, sitting at the observation glass, and he dropped to one knee. The deck was not crowded, but it was not empty. There were 4 other crew members present, 2 humans, a Vathran junior navigator, and the ship's communications officer, and every one of them stopped. Dale Rourke stopped too. He had been 3 steps from the environmental panel. He turned back to look at whatever had made the sudden silence. He saw Farron kneeling. He looked at Farron, and then he followed Farron's sightline to the woman at the glass. She had not moved. She was still holding the thermal unit he had set on the ledge. She was looking at him, not at Farron, at him. I have been the Queen's attendant for 11 years. I have watched her face in throne rooms, in grief, in the formal silence of ratification ceremonies, in the one moment I was present when she received word that her father's fleet had not returned. I know her face. She was not performing. She was not executing a declaration. She was looking at a man who had come on an unscheduled morning because he had noticed, at some point in the preceding months, that she was there, and that she was always there. And that the thermal cup was not only a practical gesture but his way of saying, without ever saying it, that she did not have to be there alone, she said. In the clear carrying voice she uses when she intends for a room to hear, "Welcome home." The 2 words of the covenant, the oldest declaration in the Concordat. 3 Concordat witnesses present in the room, one of them already on his knee. I wrote it down because that is my duty. Dale Rourke stood very still. He looked at the delegate kneeling by the door, and at the navigator who had gone quietly rigid, and then back at her. He is not a man who panics. I have watched him work for 8 months, and I have never seen him panic. But there was a long moment where he simply looked at her, holding the silence the way he held his tools, carefully, without waste. Then he said, quiet enough that I had to lean forward to catch it, "You've been watching since the 17th morning." It was not a question. It was the thing a methodical man says when he recognizes that someone else has been keeping the same record he has. She said yes. He nodded once, the way he nods when a calibration holds, and he set his tools down on the ledge beside the empty thermal unit, and he stayed. I have filled the rest of the ledger since then. Mostly procedural, as I said. Schedule changes, the conclave ahead, covenant clause that the senior scholars will argue about for another generation, and what it means now that it has been spoken and answered. I keep the observation deck entries too. They are, I think, the part of the record that will matter longest.